Hello and welcome to the Vroom 2023 predictions results. So, we start with our World Championship predictions. Now, as a reminder, the actual World Championship finished with Max Verstappen in first place, Sergio Perez in second, and Lewis Hamilton in third. However, none of us got that correct. Joff somehow decided that Ferrari were going to be good and said that Charles would be first, Max would be second, and Lewis would be third. Not a million miles away, but completely off with Charles. Finlay and myself actually had the same prediction. We both thought that Lewis would win, Max would come second, and for some reason Carlos Sainz would come third. I know that I was weirdly on a Carlos hype train at the start of the season. Don't know what Finlay was on. Who knows? And then Ian predicted Max. Sorry, not Max. He predicted Lewis, and then Max, and then Charles. So, yeah, also wrong. Most of us thought that Mercedes would be back this year. We weren't. They weren't at all, really. We all thought Max would be second. He was not. He was very rarely second this entire season. And all of us forgot about Sergio. Yeah, bit of a shame, but oh well. So, for the point system, which I've done for the first bit of these predictions, not the random prediction of the wild cards. I've left them as their own thing, but I have scored up the first bits. So, what I've done is I have taken who your prediction was and how far away they were from that place. So, for Joff, he predicted Charles. He actually came P5, so he was 4 places off. He had Max in second, he was 1 place off, and he had Lewis in third, which was correct. So that means Joff finished with a score of -5. Well done, Joff. These are all then put against each other and scored as a thing, not, you're not on -5 points. But you should be. Because who the fuck thought Charles was going to win? Me and Finlay both, again, did the same. So we said Lewis for first, 2 places off. Max second, 1 place off. And we both had Carlos, who came 7th. So we were 4 places off. So we both ended up with -7. And Ian had Lewis first, 2 places off. Max second, 1 place off. And Charles in third, who was 5th. So he was 2 places off. So he also actually ended up with -5. So at the end of the first round, Joff and Ian have scored the maximum of 4 points each, because they were joint first. And me and Finlay came joint third, so we got 2 points each. So, on to our next section. We had who we thought would win in the Constructors' Championship. Joff, still on a hype train, had Ferrari. Finlay said Mercedes. Myself, I said Red Bull. And Ian also went with Mercedes. So, quite simply, Joff's pick were third. He was last. He gets 1 point. Mercedes obviously came second, so Finlay and Ian both tied for second. They get 3 points. Joff got the 1 for being 4th. And I was correct with Red Bull, so I got the full 4 points. And then our next question, best of the rest. I'm doing this as 4th because that made the most sense to me. And I'm capricious and decided how the scoring system was working on the fly. So, yeah. Also, Ian and Joff had the same answer, and me and Finlay had the same answer, so doesn't affect things particularly much at this point. Maybe it will later. Who knows? I do. So, Joff and Ian both chose Alpine. They were wrong. Alpine were 6th. No, they weren't 4th. Me and Finlay, however, chose this team, the mighty McLaren, and they were 4th. So, me and Finlay both get the maximum 4 points, while Joff and Ian get just the 2. So, our dark horse predictions. Joff predicted Aston Martin. He said that there would be P45 in the races and fighting for P56 in the constructors. Yeah, not bad. Pretty good. Aston Martin were a good dark horse this year. I'd say that's pretty good. He underestimated the podium potential though, especially Mr. Alonso, who was excellent. But they did finish fifth in the end, so well done, Joff. Finley went with the simple prediction of Williams won't be the worst, which, yes, correct, they were not the worst. I actually didn't mark down where they finished. I think they were seventh in the constructors in the end. So yeah, definitely not the worst. Well done, Finley. Myself, I said that Alfa Romeo would have a good season. I said that they would fight for P6 in the constructors. They did not. They came ninth. They were shite all year. But yeah, but nothing. They were shite. That's poor. Ian's prediction, short and sweet. Alonso. Yeah, yeah, Alonso. Yeah, that's. Yep, correct. In terms of scoring, I've gone for Ian. Yeah, spot on. 4 points. Well done. Joff, I'm going to give you the 3 points. I think you had Aston Martin, but you weren't quite as sure on it. Finley, you're only getting 2 points. That's just a safe prediction. They weren't going to be as bad as last year, probably, but still a good one. And I get 1 point because I was completely off base. Pretty much, yeah. So our next two sections are very similar. We have best race and worst race. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk through the races. I went and rewatched the highlights because I don't remember the season, frankly. And I have ranked our predictions on what I think was closest to being correct. We were wrong, basically, across the board. It just didn't get the correct race for best or for worst. But hey, so Joff said Baku for his best race. Finley predicted Canada. I myself predicted Melbourne in Australia. And Ian also said Baku, but he did specify that it would be the best race because it would be carnage, a big name would go out, and there'd be an unexpected winner. Let's start with Baku. The first few comments that I read on the YouTube highlights basically were all just saying, wow, how is this 7 minutes? What a shit race. So I don't think either Ian or Joff are on to many points here, to be honest. Yeah, it wasn't that exciting. Max and then Perez both quite easily passed Charles at the start. Max was then actually caught out by a safety car, which did kind of ruin his race a wee bit. Nick Debris lived up to his name and crashed out of nowhere, just kind of poor. Max then passed Charles quite easily enough. Perez is still in the lead. Alonso has a nice move on Carlos. That was nice to see. Stroll does the same thing as De Vries, but doesn't completely fuck it. So that's funny. The highlights then skipped from lap 16 to lap 32, so nothing happened in the middle. And then, yeah, nothing else really happened for the rest of the race. It was quite boring. It was only the fourth race of the season. Checo did win it, which meant that he was actually drawn with Max at that point, 2-2. The season was on. It was good. Maybe. So Finley said Canada. Lap 1 was pretty exciting. Carlos had a nice move on Perez. Then that, or not a move, sorry, they touched, and then that pushed Magnussen wide, which was a whole thing. Logan Sargent DNFs. Piastri does a nice pass. I think it was on a Haas. George then clips the curb and fucks it into the wall. So bye bye, George. Lando kind of bullies Piastri. I'd forgotten about this, but there was definitely a bit of the season where Lando was very much going, "Hello, Piastri, get out my way. I'm the more experienced teammate." And Piastri was kind of just doing that. I don't think he'll be as easy to pass without team orders next year. But hey. Yeah, Albon's hanging about in the midfield, actually quite nice, causing some midfield issues, making people annoyed at him. There's a couple of decent midfield battles in there. Also, Alonso and Lewis battling for P2, which was quite good. This was the race that De Vries and Magnussen were battling. Russell gets past, and then De Vries kind of just doesn't make the corner. Magnussen can't do anything, and they just both go down the escape road, and it's just kind of embarrassing, frankly. Yeah. Bottas is actually doing things in the midfield. I think this is one of the 3 races that he turned up for this year. Max is just checked out in front, but hey. Overall, pretty decent midfield battles, and also for B2, but Max did win quite easily. Hey. And then our third potential for best race is Melbourne. And this starts out with Max Verstappen in the lead and Russell going past him on lap 1. Actually, quite nice to see. Charles gets spun out in the sort of turn 1, and he just gets beached in the gravel because Charles Leclerc is not a very good driver, Joff. I'm sorry, he's just not very good. Russell pits from the lead, and then there's a red flag, so he gets a bit fucked. I think he ends up like P4 at the restart, so it's not terrible. But Lewis is leading at the restart, which is nice. De Vries in the background has contact with someone. The car just kind of jumps up, but he manages to keep going. Like, they don't really talk about it in the highlights, but I was like, the fuck? Bizarre. But then, yeah, so Lewis is leading, Max gets past him fairly easily on a DRS move. They don't really have much of a fight. Russell's engine then goes on fire, so he's done. Sergio's in the pack in this one, but actually doing some nice moves, a couple of nice overtakes. It's pretty exciting. And then Carlos and Gasly are battling for P4. Carlos eventually gets it. Max is a bit checked out ahead. He goes quite wide into the grass at one point, and he's just like, "Whoa, what was that? I've just woken up." Ooh. And then at the end, K-Mag's tyre explodes against the wall. And there's another red flag. And then there's a 2-lap shootout. And yeah, there's quite a bit weird, quite a lot of stuff after the restart. You've got Max gets away. But then in the back there's a shit ton of contact. So Alonso gets spun out by Carlos. Stroll goes into the gravel, but manages to keep going, unlike Charles Leclerc. Who's the better driver, Joff? And then the Alpines just fuck each other into the wall, which is great. So there's a third red flag. And then it's on count back. Alonso and Carlos stay ahead. And then it restarts and there's a fairly casual finish. But yeah, it was fun middle. Well, the middle was alright, the end was good, and the start was pretty good as well. So yeah. Basically, what I have said is that Joff and Ian's prediction of Baku, not very good. However, Ian did predict a lot of carnage, that it would be good, so he was wrong, but worse than Joff. So Ian gets the 1 point, Joff gets 2, and then in second place, I'm going to give it to Finlay with Canada. I think Canada was a decent race. Definitely had some excitement. There was quite a bit of stuff in the midfield, but there really wasn't anything up front. And that is why I've given Melbourne the top place out of these races, because it was kind of decent all the way through, and then you've got the carnage at the end. Plus, there were actually some stuff going ahead that might have made the lead a bit more different. You've obviously got Russell took the lead at the start, and then there's a couple of restarts. So yeah, so Finlay ends up with 3 points for coming in second place, and then I am getting 4 points for having the best race out of those options. So our worst race of the season. Now, Joff said Vegas. Finlay said Le Mans. I said Vegas or Miami. Here's my bets. And Ian insulted Monaco by calling it boring as fuck. Shocking. So again, I'll go through the races. Just going to say straight off the board, Finlay's disqualified. I didn't watch Le Mans. I doubt he did. I can't be arsed looking it up. So you're getting 0 points for this round, my friend, because I'm being capricious and I can't bother looking into Le Mans this year. It might have been good. Let's say it was. Um, yeah. The rest of us. So Miami, I had a quick look at it. Perez leads. Max starts ninth. I don't know if he took an engine penalty or something. Didn't really want to look it up. He DRSs everyone and is in fourth by the end of lap 9. Leclerc is also, I think they might have both taken on an engine penalty, but Leclerc is fighting K-Mag for 7th. Max on the podium by lap 14. Carlos speeds in the pits, gets a 5-second penalty. Well done him. Alonso does have a nice move on Carlos for P4, but he would have had it anyway because Carlos had the penalty. Charles is somehow in 11th and still fighting K-Mag. I don't know what was going on with his race. Weird. Max ended up running on the hards until lap 46 out of 57. He comes out just behind Perez and he gets him 2 laps later. It's a nice fight, but it's inevitably going to be Max. Charles ends up in 6th, riding just behind Carlos, and then on the very last lap, Lewis overtakes him. So yeah, overall it wasn't a great race, wasn't terrible. But it probably was better than Baku, which we thought was going to be a really good race. So yeah, that says about how much we know. Ian, I'm going to tell you that you have insulted Monaco and everything that F1 stands for. However, you were also just really wrong this year. Ocon starts P3, must have had a brilliant qualifying. On like the first hairpin, Stroll's clumsy, goes into the wall, then goes into Logan, and then Logan in the Haas touch as well. Logan in the Haas touch, and then Logan drives over Stroll's front wing. Stroll was shit in this race. He just didn't turn up. Carlos almost crashed into Ocon out the tunnel, just carries too much speed. He loses his front wing. I think he carries on just with a fucked front wing because he would have lost too many places to pit. Hey. And then Logan Sargent gets passed by the other Haas, and then by Stroll, and then by Perez in 3 consecutive corners, which around Monaco, you've got to be doing something really fucking wrong to let 3 people pass you at 3 separate corners. So, not good. Ocon then has a slow stop. Not great, especially because he's in like, a podium position. Then the rain happens. Rain is threatening. Ocon just about stays ahead of Carlos in the pit. Carlos is a wee bit slow. He doesn't want to pit at this point. He's fucking pissed at the radio. It's quite funny to see. Perez is a bit clumsy. Runs into a Haas slowly. And then the rain turns up. And it gets slippery as fuck. And everyone just goes everywhere. It's class. Ocon and Carlos are fighting and slipping all over the place. The Mercs go to inters really quickly. Alonso also pits at the same time, comes out on new mediums and doesn't do very well at all. Yeah, terribly. Carlos aquaplanes off the road, loses 2 places, including to Charles. George and Stroll both go down the escape road. George doesn't look when he's reversing out and just gets T-boned by Perez. Stroll on the inters slips right into the wall. Right. Perez also goes into the wall, and then Lando and Piastri both come alive. And McLaren was really, really good on its wet tyres, and they just shoot through. So, yeah, Ian, you were completely wrong. Monaco was great this year. Vegas. I think most of us thought Vegas was going to be shit, and in terms of like everything around it, it was a bit of a shit show, wasn't it? But the actual race was pretty good. So you got Charles and Max fighting at the start. That was really good. They get pushed off the road. Both managed to stay ahead. Charles is on the radio fuming. Eventually, Max does get a 5-second, but he's so far ahead at this point it doesn't matter. Alonso has a spin in the background. Bottas and Perez both kind of bowling ball into him. Carlos tags it to Lewis. It's just everyone's kind of spinning. There's no grip. Quite fun to see. Lando fucking smacks into the wall. Don't remember why. I think he just kind of fucks out of the corner and is just gone. And then Max is penalised at this point. Ocon doing pretty well. pushing people, going for a couple of overtakes. Piastri's doing well as well. Both the Williams actually mixing it up in the points. It's probably Logan Sargent's best race. Um, I think I can't remember if he'd already got the points at Austin at this point, but yeah, probably his best race. Um, and then Charles passes Max, but then Max goes into the pits. It doesn't really matter. Piastri and Hamilton have a bit of a fight, a couple of punctures on the way. Perez up the front doing quite well. George and Max end up coming together quite badly. George comes on worse and then gets penalised, which is funny. And then there's a safety car caused because of George's issues. Everyone pits. Hulkenberg showed up in this race. I'd forgotten about that. He did bets, which was good. Then you've got Perez and Charles fighting for the lead. Really cool to see. You've got one will overtake, the other will keep going, and it's just a nice big fight. The Alpines are battling each other. Ocon ignores team orders. I think he's told to let Gasly through, and he's like, nah, fuck this. Charles manages to get past Perez eventually, and then Max gets past Perez as well. And then Max and Charles are fighting each other. Max does get Charles eventually, but it's a nice wee fight. Charles then loses it off the track, which isn't great. With Charles off the track, Perez goes through. In the background, you've got Lewis, who's got a couple of nice big passes. He's really making his way through the pack. You still got a couple of laps left at this point, and Charles is trying to make up for that mistake. And then on the very last lap, he does get past Perez for P2. And yeah, I think as much as we kind of thought this was going to be shite, probably turned out to be one of the better races of the year. Don't actually know what I would say is the best race. I mean, Singapore, because it wasn't a Red Bull winning, up there. Vegas, up there. Yeah, definitely not the worst race of the season. So, as I said earlier, Finlay, you have been disqualified. I'm giving you 0 points for this because it's Le Mans. I can't be bothered looking up Le Mans. Nah. And then all of us were just wrong. So, myself, Joff, and Ian are all getting 1 point for having an actual F1 related answer, but they're all just wrong. So we come to our final two scored sections. We had the surprise win or podium. Not a lot of surprise winners this year. Not a lot. So Joff said Alonso. Pretty good shout. Finlay said Alex Albon. Did specify podium. I said none outside of the top three teams, which I think at the time I was probably thinking Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes. So let's go with that. And Ian said Lando Norris. So I've scored this one quite simply. Did you get it correct? Yes, you get a point. Did you get it wrong? You get nothing. So Joff and Ian, congratulations, you have 1 point each. Me and Finlay got fuck all. Good job. And then our final question that I am scoring is the most DNFs bit. So, Joff said Tsunoda. Finlay suggested Ocon. Myself, I went for the amusingly titled and very definitely my own original joke of Nick DeBreeze. And Ian said Bottas. So I found a very lovely breakdown of all of the DNFs of the season. There weren't actually that many DNFs. So Joff's suggestion of Tsunoda was tied 12th. However, he only had 2 DNFs, and there were only 2 drivers that did DNF, Lando and Lewis, that had less. Basically, they both had 1. Max and someone else, I guess, didn't have a DNF. Everyone else had more than that. So, Josh said Tsunoda wasn't that high. Myself, I said Nick DeBreeze. He also tied for 12th with just 2. Ian, as I said, Bottas, he tied for 7th. He did have 1 more, he had 3, but not great. And Finlay suggested Ocon, and Ocon was correct. He had the most DNFs. I think he had 4. 5. So yeah. And in terms of points, Finlay obviously gets the full 4 because he was correct. Ian was the next place with 3. Myself and Joff were tied, but I'm going to give myself an extra point because I'm feeling like that, because Next to Freeze would have crashed more had he had a full season. So my chances were put in half. Therefore, Joff gets 1 point, I get 2. Just how it is. We come to it. The scores at the end of everything, and they're very exciting. So, without any further ado, we have in 4th place a worthy contender, although this year one with hopes that were dashed completely, both in this predictions and also specifically by Charles Leclerc. It's Joff. Joff is in 4th place with 15 points. And then in 2nd place, because it is a tie between 2 people, we have on 18 points myself and Finley. Which does mean that the winner of this year's predictions, the hopefully not dead Ian on 19 points. There we go. I hope everyone enjoyed this year's predictions. I will be back in a wee second with our wildcard predictions. Here we are, back again with our wildcard predictions. And now I have noted this as no points, just vibes. Let's see who had the best vibes going into this season. I am going to mix it up. I'm going to start with Finley, who was on a roll this year with his predictions. He predicted that Schumacher would get on the podium with Mercedes. Now, I didn't check this, but I don't think he was ever the team representative set up, because did he not have a reserve contract or something with him this year? That would have been quite funny. It would have been a great way for you to get your prediction right, but no. Finley then also said Verstappen to crash in the first race, which we then had Joff commenting on, saying that he didn't want this to happen because if Max went on to win the first race of the season, he would not be able to win the rest of the season because of the curse of winning the first race. Neither of these things came true. Max won quite happily in the first race and then cruised on to take the season nice and easily. Yep. Finley's final one: Red Bull to suffer engine issues, resulting in multiple DNFs. No. I think Finley basically had the opposite idea for what the season would be. And yeah, we got punished because of your hubris, Finley. So thank you. Thank you for that. Then on to a slightly better set of predictions with Ian. We have Russell takes out Hamilton more than once. I'm just realising I never got around to checking this. I don't remember if this happened. At this point, I'm not going to go back and check. If someone else wants to check, go ahead. I think he did come together at least once. I don't know if it happened more than once. But we'll see. He also thought that Leclerc would lead Monza, but have mechanical issues. He didn't actually have mechanical issues at Monza this year, but Carlos Sainz was the lead Ferrari and Charles was kind of 4th to 6th for most of the race, not really in it. So no, that didn't come true. Ian did say that Piastri would get a podium, and now he was correct, because he did get a podium at Suzuka. He also got a sprint podium and a sprint victory this year, so yeah, well done, Ian. You were right to have faith in Piastri. You also, however, had faith in Lance Stroll that he would not get into any incidents. Nah, he's Stroll in it. I mean, just looking at the Monaco race, he was fucking dog shit. So, no, that's not correct. You predicted that Ocon and Gasly would remain friends at the end of the year. Publicly, I think this is the case. They did come together. They did have some racing issues this year, but nothing really boiled over. We didn't hear about anything behind the scenes going completely wrong. So, no, I'd say, at least officially, they are still friendly colleagues. Let's call them that. And then your final prediction, which Joff absolutely loved, Sadly did not come true. Dr. Herbert Markle has not had a stroke and nor died. He is still with us at the moment. Then I'm going to go on to myself because I had some really good predictions. I predicted that one or more rookies would get a top four finish, correct. But then I ruined it by saying that they wouldn't get any podiums, which no, Piastri got a podium. So kind of there, but no. Um, I said that there would be the rise of the second driver, as Geoff called it. I said Carlos would finish over Charles. Actually, was quite close to the end, but no, didn't happen. I also said Nick De Vries would beat Yuki Tsunoda over the season. He didn't finish out the season. I don't really know where I was going with this because I don't think I thought De Vries would be very good at all, but then I weirdly appeared to have. Nah, Yuki was good, so no. And then my best prediction was that Valtteri Bottas would be a top seven driver once again. Now he was P15 in the end. Boys checked out. He's in his Kimi Räikkönen senior years. He's happy cycling about Australia in some budgie smugglers. He's got a fit girlfriend. They enjoy cycling together. Boy comes back and does some races between nude photo shoots. He's got a pretty good life, you know. You can't really complain about him. But yeah, his performance isn't really there, is it? Shocking. And then Joff. I've left this one to last because Joff wins on vibes, very much so. Um, None of his predictions came true. I'm just going to say that out of the way. But they were all really, really quite close. He was on the right train of thoughts, but just got off at the wrong station, basically. Joff thought that Danny Rick would be swapped into the Red Bull second seat because Max and Checo would have tensions and Checo would get pissed off and then would be let go. He compounded this by saying that Danny Rick would then get a podium. So no, Danny Rick did not get back to Red Bull. He ended up in AlphaTauri, as we know, and he didn't get a podium. He got a bunch of metal in his wrist because he broke it. But I do think the Joff was pretty on the mark here, but maybe just a year too early with his Danny Rick back to Red Bull suggestions. He also thought that Aston Martin would win a race. Now, we all hoped that they would this year, frankly, especially for Fernando to get his next race. There was the whole thing with the Spanish Grand Prix about it being like 30 years since he'd won a race, or now it's the 30th Grand Prix. I don't remember. But there was a whole thing about numbers, and it was all going to be perfect. And then Max just won again and ruined everything. So, yeah. Joff did have one more prediction, which was that Sebastian Vettel would announce his return from retirement for 2026, possibly alongside Mick Schumacher, driving for the Audi team. Now, this hasn't come true, but it is just 2024. There are still 2 years before the 2026 season, so you still have a chance for this to come true. Don't really think it will, but hey, you never know. You do have a chance. So that was our wild card predictions. They were pretty wild. I think all of us, apart from Finley, had something that was close to something that happened. But yeah, I think Joff wins on the vibes. I think basically someone was telling Joff the answers for the future, but it was like a game of Chinese whispers. So when it got to him, he knew Danny Rick was doing something, and he knew that Aston Martin would be good, but just not quite correct. So does that bode well for then Audi or Vettel? Who knows? Who can say? Not Joff. So those were our prediction results from this season. Congratulations, Ian. You have won our predictions challenge. I hope you are still alive and with us in this world. Beyond that, Finley, you did well. I also did well. Joff, not so much. Too much faith in Charles Leclerc. Yeah, I am looking forward to this year's predictions. I think Stefan will be a good addition if he chooses to partake. There's some strong competition here. We've got some very, very good ideas. Just we're not very good at predictions. So, who knows? Good luck for next year, everyone.